grieving families left in limbo.
It was crippling for me.
Months-long delays for death certificates exposed. Then, cities accused of turning tickets into revenue.
It's definitely more about making money than keeping people safe.
When systems fail, people pay the price. We trace the damage, expose the truth, and fight to fix it. This is Uncovered by Atlanta News First Investigates.
Gwinnett County families waiting months to receive death certificates after a loved one passes.
It's a critical document needed for handling assets and insurance. An Atlanta News First investigation uncovered the delays beginning in the doctor's offices.
My mother believed in me more than anybody else, so I miss that.
Roberta Gardner says her greatest supporter was her mom, Nancy Young. They'd been working on this puzzle together, but since Mom's death on March 11th, the project sat still. Until now, just as Roberta is finally putting together the pieces of a puzzling case, the more than 2-month delay of her mother's death certificate.
Shocked. Completely shocked.
The problem begins where the police investigation ends.
What's going on?
On March 11th, Gwinnett County Police arrived to the home. After checking around, interviewing family, learning Nancy had seizures and dementia, officers decide this death is not suspicious, telling relatives.
It appears natural. There's no signs of foul play or anything like that.
Hello?
I'm here.
Police call the Gwinnett County Medical Examiner's office while on scene. The agency agrees this is a natural death. But the question the staffer asks the officer next will change the course of how the death certificate is handled.
Does she have a primary care physician?
She does.
Because this was a natural death,
Because she takes medication for seizures.
because Nancy had a physician that she'd recently seen for prescribed medication, this is now an unattended death. In Georgia, unattended death is when a doctor has treated a patient for potentially life-threatening illness within 60 days prior to the patient's passing. So in circumstances like Nancy's, Georgia law explains the death certificate is not the local medical examiner's responsibility. Instead, the doctor must sign it within 72 hours. But days turned into weeks of waiting. 2 months later, still no signed death certificate.
You obviously want to focus on grieving your mother. Like there's a loss that just came through your family, but you're out here doing an investigation, for lack of better words.
Yes, it was crippling. It was crippling for me. The medical examiner's office said, we're advocating for you. You should know that that doctor is legally bound to sign your mother's death certificate, and the fact that he won't is a problem, and we're going to go after his license.
Atlanta News First Investigates found since June 2024, the Georgia Medical Board received 60 complaints against doctors who failed to sign death certificates.
I needed to grieve, but I also needed to do the legal things, and I couldn't make those steps.
Often, doctors refuse to sign because the patient was not physically in their hospital at the time of death. What's worse, the Gwinnett County ME wrote in this recent report, a physician refuses because he or she does not face significant repercussions. The added burden of subpoenaing medical records, reviewing records, and signing death certificate falls upon the medical examiner.
It's shaken me to my core. I realize with every part of me that death is part of the continuity of care, but I don't think the doctors believe that.
Sierra, you really feel for Roberta's family. And the entire time while I was watching your investigation, I kept thinking, why wouldn't the doctor just sign it? So any response from his office?
That is such a big question here. We were wondering the same. We reached out to the doctor's office. You might have noticed in that story, we intentionally did not name them because we felt like this was a bigger issue. This was not specific to one doctor. As you alluded to here, like there's that big gap. Why wouldn't it be easier to just sign? There seems to be this conversation about liability. If that patient isn't actually in my care at the time of their passing and I sign it, what if I'm liable for something else? I wasn't around to actually see what led up to the moment they took their last breath. So we reached out to the doctor's office in this story, and they told us what took them so long is that it took a while to get the death certificate from the medical examiner's office. The family somewhat refutes that and says, we physically went down to the doctor's office with someone from the Gwinnett ME's office asking the doctor's office to sign that death certificate, and yet they still declined to do so. When we followed up with the doctor's office, they said they were checking on that to see if they had any record of it.
So there's some discrepancy there. What are state officials doing about this? In your story, you've identified multiple instances of this happening. And what I love about your story, about this investigation, is that I learned something. I didn't even know this was an issue.
I didn't know it was an issue either. Unattended death, who knew? Like, most of the time you assume it's the medical examiner's office that's going to handle something. But really, if that death occurs within that 60-day gap, it goes back to the doctor's office. So we asked the state, what are you guys doing about this? The state medical board. They said they are partnering with the Department of Public Health and the Georgia Bureau of Investigations to train and educate doctors across the state so that they know the law does compel the doctor's office to sign death certificates in the case of natural unattended deaths.
So hopefully some change happening because of the problem in your reporting. Sierra Cummings, thank you so much for this insightful investigation.
Thank you.
Atlanta News First investigators are exposing wrongdoing, solving your problems, and helping your family make ends meet. Scan the code on your screen to subscribe to our newsletter and get every story sent straight to your inbox.
Georgia cities accused of using traffic tickets to boost their budgets. Atlanta News First uncovers the loophole leading to millions of dollars in revenue.
Georgia towns accused of using their police forces for profit.
An Atlanta News First investigation uncovered a loophole in the law that allows cities to collect large shares of their budgets from traffic citations.
Order T67, your order's ready.
Sophia Farisi's family business must sell a lot of pies to make a profit.
The margarita, this one is also a top seller, but our best seller is just like a typical cheese slice. Thank you.
While her Atlanta pizzeria counts on repeat customers to stay open, Sophia recently visited a small Georgia town. She believes relies on too much dough from out-of-town drivers to exist.
He comes behind me and he starts, the sirens go off and whatever. So I pull over and I'm like, thinking the worst.
This past January, police ticketed Sophia for an expired tag while driving through the city of Dillard, about 2 hours north of Atlanta. This is the picture she took of her traffic stop. It cost her about $200. According to the Georgia Department of Community Affairs, Dillard collected $315,000 from fines and forfeitures in 2022. That's 44% of the entire city's budget for a town of about 300 people.
Numbers don't lie, so you see the percentages, and if the number is that high, it's definitely more about making money than keeping people safe.
While Dillard isn't the only city that banks on traffic citations for a big slice of its budget, an Atlanta News First investigation uncovered no other town in the state relies on the profit from its police force more than the city of Lenox, which covers less than 2 square miles in South Georgia. In 2022, it collected $1.3 million from citations. That's nearly 73% of the town's budget.
Yeah, it's crazy.
Atlanta News First Investigates spoke to a dozen drivers ticketed by Lenox police this year.
This is a scam.
All say the amount of citation revenue the city collects makes them question the police department's motives.
And I do think it creates somewhat of a distrust with your law enforcement.
And it makes you just question how valid a lot of these citations are.
Of the 361 citations police issued for the first 2 months of this year, records show just 5 were on Lenox streets, the remaining Interstate 75. which runs straight through the city.
That sounds like the old TV show, The Dukes of Hazzard.
Come into my parlor, said the spider to the bee.
They've created a police force to be a revenue-generating operation in that town.
You city boys have no idea.
When the Lenox police chief and the mayor declined to be interviewed, we drove 3 hours south of Atlanta to attend its city council meeting.
With so much revenue coming from traffic citations, some question, what's the real motive? Safety or raising revenue? Do you understand that concern?
Stops no one unless they're doing over 90 miles an hour up there.
It's hard to hear, but that's Mayor Henry Baker explaining that his officers only ticket drivers who speed more than 90 miles per hour. But Atlanta News First uncovered the first 2 months of this year, 40% of its citations were for non-speeding offenses, like tinted windows and obscured license plates.
Could your city operate or even exist without all of this traffic citation revenue?
I have no comment on that.
Okay.
I have no comment, is how he responded. While the mayor declined to answer our question, here's what a member of the city's fire department told us.
If you took that revenue away from a town like this, the town would become a ghost town because people in this town cannot afford to have their property taxes raised.
Lenox, Georgia relies on traffic citations for nearly 73% of its budget. That means every ticket has a real impact on the town's finances and the drivers paying for it. A loophole in Georgia law lets small towns rely on citations for revenue. And Andy, Lenox isn't alone. Similar practices are happening across Georgia, right?
Yeah, we found cities across the state really collecting large sums of their budgets strictly through traffic citations. And we also didn't talk about in this story that is also collecting a lot of revenue for cities are those red light school cameras, which some lawmakers are trying to ban. They tried to ban it this past session. I think they're going to try to do it again.
And I do want to get back to that. But first, this Lenox story was so interesting to me because you decided to go to city council and ask those questions, pulling the curtain back some. You know, we love to do that on Uncovered. How'd you make that decision?
You know, I don't like doing unscheduled interviews. I'd rather sit down with someone, prep them, tell them exactly what the story is about, what the questions are likely going to be focused about, but the mayor declined to be interviewed. But we felt like this was an important story enough to travel 3 hours down south to Lenox, Georgia. And when we got there, I did go up to the mayor and I say, Mayor, is there an opportunity for the public to speak? I'd love to ask a few questions. And to his credit, he allowed me to do it. And so that's the process of how ultimately I ended up essentially interviewing the mayor during a city council meeting.
And this version that our viewers watch for this story that just ran, it's the shorter version. And you know, you've got a longer version where you dive deeper into what came of the state investigation into Lenox. I'd love to give you the opportunity to talk about it here.
Yeah, so at the time of us investigating Lenox, we had no idea that the state of Georgia, the Georgia Public Safety Department was also investigating the city. And it came from a complainant, someone who lived in Florida who was driving through the city. And he noticed something very strange after he got ticketed. He called the city and he'd say, I'd like to figure out a way to lower this. This is a really expensive fine. And without hesitation, the city said, yes, we're going to lower it to this type of citation, changing it from a speeding violation to another type of violation and decreasing the amount. And he thought that was so strange, so he tipped off the state. And the state was investigating. At the end result of that investigation, they suspended the city's ability to write speeding citations for 6 months, likely significantly impacting the city's budget. Another thing that we found out is that the police chief resigned. He actually emailed me after the story to let him know that he resigned. We reached out to the city. We reached out to him again saying, hey, would you like to do an interview? We didn't hear back.
Atlanta News First investigates, cares about your community and the issues impacting your neighborhood. Scan the code on your screen and share a story you think we should investigate. If it's one we can help you with, we'll reach out to you. Drivers slapped with big fines for illegally passing Georgia school buses. Common mistakes leading to potentially damaging consequences.
Drivers in Georgia are also working to fight steep penalties linked to school bus cameras. As Andy mentioned, the fine for illegally passing a stopped school bus is now $1,000, one of the highest in the country.
So the bus would have been going this direction.
Betsy Johnson shows us the spot she was caught on camera passing a school bus last year.
I've never seen a bus stopped in this location in the 20 years I've been here.
A few weeks later, the Atlanta resident got a ticket in the mail for $1,000.
And I thought initially it said $100. And then when I looked closer, it said $1,000. And so I was just literally in shock.
But Betsy says the video doesn't capture the whole story. The former traffic engineer says the bus stop location on Peachtree Road in Buckhead is in a blind spot for drivers traveling in the opposite direction. The day of the violation, there was construction in the area and her vehicle was 5 lanes away from the bus. In Georgia, all lanes of traffic have to stop by law. In some states, though, like South Carolina, they don't require drivers to stop on multi-lane roads traveling in the opposite direction.
I think bus safety is important, but I think having been a transportation engineer before, things aren't just black and white. I think we really have to consider both the passengers, the school bus students, and where those are safely located, but we also have to be cognizant of drivers on the street.
Betsy planned to argue the ticket in court, preparing this detailed presentation for the judge.
With the bus being stopped right there.
Including pictures, maps, and a history of the construction in the area at the time of the violation.
It's too bad you couldn't work at Matlock.
But when she got to court, she changed her mind when she realized there was little recourse.
As you are aware, I don't make laws, I just enforce them.
Tarini Gundy is the Atlanta municipal judge. Betsy wanted to hear her side of the story. She says her courtroom is typically packed with drivers.
Because the fine is so steep, everybody generally shows up for court because they want to see if there's anything that they can do to reduce that fine.
The fines for illegally passing a school bus in Georgia jumped in 2024 from $250 to $1,000 after lawmakers passed Addie's Law, named after this 8-year-old girl hit and killed by a driver while trying to board her bus. Since then, Atlanta Public Schools' bus camera citation revenue has more than doubled, from $170,000 in 2023 to $415,000 last year. And that doesn't include the percentage the camera companies receive. Georgia's fine is among one of the highest in the country.
I felt like it was too high. I still feel like it's too high.
State Representative Don Parsons wants to reduce the fine, filing proposed legislation this session that would gradually increase the fine. While the school bus camera fines are civil, the state can put a lien on your vehicle if left unpaid. According to the Georgia Department of Revenue, since 2023, at least 354 Georgia drivers could not renew their vehicle registrations due to unpaid school bus camera violations.
$1,000 is a lot of money. $1,000 can be enough that somebody can't put food on the table for their children or pay their rent.
It's a law that took effect in 2024, but lawmakers are already trying to lower the price tag. Andy, where does that stand right now?
So that lawmaker who proposed the legislation to reduce it to $500, it didn't even get out of committee. And it's very hard to compel lawmakers of this type of legislation to change their minds after they've already passed it. And this piece of legislation was passed after the death, a tragic death of a young girl in the metro area. I think that lawmaker is likely going to propose it again. A lot of people upset about the amount of this fine. But on the other side, there are people like a judge that I interviewed for a similar story that basically said, hey, this is a serious fine. We're talking about children. And if you do this, you should suffer the penalty.
This is a huge talker. We'll be watching next legislative session. Thanks so much, Andy.
How many innocent people do you have to search before you find what you're looking for?
These are lives that are at stake.
How much of this funding has gone towards your nonprofit?
You also have eyes and ears, and you know what's in that internal affairs investigation.
You guys can't explicitly say, we are investigating this doctor.
You latched on and you never let go.
It sounds to me like you're doing work as a general contractor. Yes, sir. Are you a licensed general contractor? No, sir.
We expect you to do better.
Would you share the receipts and financials with Atlanta News First?
If I never would have saw your story, I never would have known what was going on.
We would still be stuck. We would not be here if it were not for you.
Exposing corruption.
Finding solutions.
Protecting your money.
Helping you stay safe.
Uncovering the truth.
Join us for Uncovered by Atlanta News First Investigates, Sunday nights starting at 7.
You can listen to all of our extended conversations on these stories right now on our podcast, Behind the Investigation. Just search Atlanta News First on your favorite podcast platform.